Hello, I'm Rob. Welcome to my channel Wide Awake. So today I'm going to do a review on a video which is an interview of a gentleman called Itzhak Bentov, who was scientist and mystic and spiritual guy, but he apparently invented the steerable heart catheter, and he's a very intelligent guy. So I'm going to play the video. He was an Israeli-American scientist, but anyway, that's who he is. Let's go over to his video.
Last year, we did a program with Itzhak Bentov, a Boston-based researcher into the relationship between consciousness and the cosmos, and based upon a book which he wrote called Stalking the Wild Pendulum. This book has since become somewhat of a bestseller among people who are interested in the relationship between consciousness and the cosmos.
It's a very old video, as you can see. The guy is he's passed away now. It's Itzhak Bentov. That's not him. That's the guy who's doing the interview. He's heaven and earth bloke.
And we wanted to once again get an opportunity this morning to speak with Mr. Bentov. Ben Bentov is a wonderful, loving, kind man, brave, courteous, true, all the other kind of things you can say. The interesting thing about him is that he has, over the years, conducted research into consciousness. The subtitle of his book is The Mechanics of Consciousness, and what we want to try to talk about today is one aspect of it, and that is the evolution of consciousness. Ben, there's probably no theory that has had more impact on Western thinking than the theory of evolution that Darwin came up with in the mid-19th century. And ever since then, all of our thought has been along the ideas that somehow we have evolved as human beings to being who we are today. The question I want to ask you is...
I'm going to stop this right away, because I've got my own theories on the evolution of consciousness as well. Evolution from a materialistic point of view is how life became what it is from a single-cell organism to what it is today. My theory on the evolution of consciousness goes a lot deeper than that. I think consciousness is all there is, as I've said before, and we have our experience of the universe through our own senses. So I don't see it as life starts developing from when a single-cell organism. I see life as developing as a matter of consciousness from the beginning of the universe, because everything had an experience of reality, whether it be a basic experience, whether it's just two particles interacting through whatever laws that they interact with, which is an experience in itself, up to the more complex interactions between particles and the symbiosis between them, where they become together, it become a unity, expands the consciousness, the experience of that thing. And to the point where we are today, where we've got our own flesh suits that contain billions of cells and particles that all come together for this whole experience of consciousness that we perceive. Anyway, onto the video.
Where do you see us now in that evolutionary development?
We can say that if we take Darwin's theories as being correct, then we know that we have evolved from the apes towards humans, and now we've finally come to a point where we are humanoid in shape, with vertical spines, we are reasonably intelligent, we can push buttons on TV, drive cars, etc., etc. And what I'd like to do, I'd like to draw maybe a little diagram, but don't worry, it's not very scientific.
A little diagram.
Let me draw what is called a bell curve, which looks somehow like this. It's being used in describing random events. And the way this works is the following, that if we assume now, let's take a following situation. Take a little town that has maybe 1,000 people in it. And we have this great desire to find out what the average height of people in this town is. And therefore we go out with a yardstick and start measuring these people. What we find that a very small, very few number of people will be, say, 3 feet tall, and a very, very few of them will be maybe 7 or 8 feet tall. The bulk of the population will be right somewhere here.
Right
that is the average or mean height of these people would be about 5 feet and 6 or 8 inches, something like this. Okay, so what we find here is that this bell curve gives us a good picture of where most of the population is. That is what typifies a population. We can use this diagram also to describe evolution. The bulk of the population today is this intelligent, more or less intelligent biped, and with a vertical spine. Now, there is some backthrow. That is, there are some people here in this area, very few people who are still gorilla-like. That is, they are hairy, they beat their chest when they see their neighbors and a few other things. And then we have other people who are here in this corner, very few of them, who are very highly developed, because we say that evolution is now pushing mankind in this direction, away from the gorilla types towards the very highly evolved people. At this point we're here. What's going to happen maybe 1 million years from now, 500,000 years from now? This curve is going to shift. It's going to shift like this. That is, the bulk of the population will be very, very highly evolved. We've gone away altogether from the gorilla types, no more gorillas. And what we have here now is the average man is now the retarded person, in evolutionary terms. The bulk of the population is extremely, very, very highly evolved. And the cutting edge of evolution here, these are very, very highly evolved people. We can't even imagine what kind of person that will be. He may not have a physical body at all. What's the habitat, so to speak, of this group here? Well, you just go out and you find them. They're all over the place. The habitat of this group here, what do you think? What do you think you find these people here?
I suspect you would find them in universities. You'd find the people who are very bright, people who are in the leading edge of professions. I mean, it's an intellectual thing.
Well, I suggest that you find them in mental hospitals, in nut houses. And the reason for that is that these people, they live in a different reality, in a reality which is very changed, and few of them are adapted to live in this reality. So naturally, they can't function very well. So the only safe place, only good place for them would be the mental hospital, unless they can integrate their different view of reality with their daily lives.
This rings very true to me. Since I've started taking my journey of exploration, I've noticed that as my viewpoint on what reality is becomes more and more broader, the people in my life who have never experienced those sorts of conscious levels of consciousness they start looking at you as if you're a bit mental, to be honest, if I'm going to be completely straight with you, because people can't comprehend what you're experiencing when you're on this sort of stuff. And it does make you feel a little bit crazy, even though that you know that your subjective experience is all you've got and that is your reality. So if you're having these experiences, that is reality. And the crazy thing for me is the psychonauts, the spiritual gurus, they all kind of come to the same understanding of what these experiences are, these conscious experiences. And it's all looked at as a little bit woo-woo. Mainstream science is very focused on objective reality. And what is objective reality? It's something outside of the subjective experience that we perceive. That is solid, set in stone type of thing. In my opinion, nothing in the history of the universe has ever experienced a truly objective reality. No matter what you say, everything is an experience subjectively from its own perspective, from its own consciousness. So that, in my mind, as I've said before, means that consciousness is all, it's everything. And if we can start looking at the universe from that sort of perspective, maybe we'll start getting some better answers as to what's out there. The scientific method, it's evidence-based, isn't it? But basically, it's just a number of people who are agreeing on the outcome of a certain event after a certain cause has taken place. And you could argue that although these people have agreed on this event taking place, they've all agreed upon it from their own subjective experience. So it's still a subjective viewpoint. And you can say the same about mystical experiences, about spiritual experiences. people can come to an agreement about what they are. So why can't that then be the proof of it existing? The paradox, the difficulty is with a spiritual experience, it is very personal to the person experiencing it. So it's like Terence McKenna with his machine elves. I've never seen the machine elves, not yet anyway. Maybe I will one day. But I've seen other entities in these different parallel universes when I've taken these psychedelic medicines. And although it's not the same entities that Terence McKenna has witnessed, there are other entities that I've witnessed and other entities, other people, but some people do see the same ones. I don't know. I'm going to carry on.
Can integrate it, then we have people like Newton, like Darwin, like Faraday. These are the so-called geniuses.
The thing that I'm not certain that we have talked about is, what is it that is evolving?
Let's put it this way. The nervous system is the thing that is evolving, and the nervous system is supported by a skeleton of bones and muscles and tissue, etc., etc. Now, the nervous system is that thing that gives us the picture of our realities. That is, our realities. That reality you see all around
Apologies
you.
for the echo.
The flowers and the chairs and the microphones and the teacup is given to us by our senses.
Yeah.
We don't see light which is beyond UV and beyond infrared. We hear only a limited scale of vibrations, like, for instance, we hear anywhere from 52 to 20,000 maximum. In other words, all our senses are limited. So, with these limited senses, we naturally are seeing through a very narrow kind of tube or very narrow slit in the total reality there is. Now, as you're evolving, what happens is that slit opens up more and more and more. So you see more and more of that reality, and we assume that we see different realities. They're not very different realities, but rather a very extended, broad view of one very large reality. The Bible mentions maybe 4 to 6 colors maximum.
Yeah.
That is what people saw just there maybe 4,000 years ago.
I love this guy. His theories on consciousness really do like mirror and merge with my own, to be honest. And he's a very learned guy.
Nowadays we see hundreds and thousands of colors. That is, our visual system has evolved. Our fellow mammals like cows and horses see only black and white. So this is one example of the evolution of the nervous system. The senses are an extension of our nervous system. Our eyes, our ears, etc. are an extension of our brain, so to speak.
Okay, so now, before you were talking about the people who were the mutants, either being in the mental hospitals or being geniuses. These are people who have expanded perception, and hence they can see a reality which ordinary people at this stage of evolution are not able to see.
Correct.
What is the nature of that reality which they're able to see?
Well, that is classified as a non-physical reality sometimes. We can take an example, say, well, let's take a simple example. The family sitting at dinner table, and say there's a kid, maybe 15 years old, 16 years old, and he looks up and suddenly he says to his mother, "Hey, Ma, look at, there's our dead grandmother is standing in the corner." Mother looks around and says, "No, there's no grandmother there." And she says, "Well, kiddo, there's something wrong with you. You need help."
You're crazy.
So you're crazy. So she takes him off to the friendly neighborhood psychiatrist, and same thing happens. The psychiatrist will ask him, "Well, kiddo, what do you see?" "Well, you'll see, well, don't you see, doctor, over there in the corner, don't you see this person standing there?" Well, the psychiatrist turns around, "No, there's no such thing." Well, and then psychiatrist says, "Oh, young fella, you're in troubles," and then he writes out a little prescription for a little Thorazine or electroshock or whatever, and pretty soon, in a matter of 2 weeks, kid is back in shape, very normal.
No longer sees the
No longer sees anything.
Yeah.
What is normal? Does anybody know what normal is? We've all got our own ideas of what normal is, conforming to the laws of society. Is that normal? Or is that restricting what we actually should be evolving towards? It's like we've been stagnated for a very, very long time, held down by belief systems that don't really serve us anymore.
So the process has been reversed. This is called a psychotic episode or acute schizophrenic break or whatever it is.
And what you would say is that there's a good chance that that kid is seen.
Very good chance that the kid has a spontaneous opening of his senses.
So that the evolution has been rushed up or hurried up?
Yeah. Now, this actually happens. There are techniques to do this. But the Eastern people, the yogis, have developed systems to do this, to push the nervous system rapidly. But it happens very often spontaneously without someone trying to do anything about it. And just happens. And then, naturally, in the olden days, these kinds of things used to be called miracles.
You talk about the yogis. This is the meditation that I've talked about before. When you can get yourself into a deep meditative state, you start being more in tune with shit that's going on in the universe. It's a really strange state of consciousness, but it feels really nice and feels really natural. The problem with meditation is the distractions of normal life that you've got going around in your head all the time, and just environmental distractions based on where you are doing your meditation. It's like if you're trying to do it down the beach, you've got seagulls cawing, insects crawling all over you, people walking past, dogs running past. They're all distractions that stop you from centering yourself, from clearing your mind. It's a very difficult thing to do.
And nowadays, there's no more miracles. Well, let's take this.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because you think of, what you call the spontaneous opening of expanded awareness.
Correct.
Right? I mean, that's sort of a lot of words to say something. But in an earlier time, it was called a miraculous occurrence.
Yeah.
Elevated consciousness.
Right.
A time of great revelation, of God speaking to you.
Now, take like this fellow, St. Paul, yeah? He's going or walking or riding to Damascus in the olden days. And suddenly this big ball of white light descends, and Jesus standing in the ball of light, and he says, hey, why don't you lay off of my people and stop doing whatever you're doing and all that? And he's very impressed, and he's even blinded, and he falls down, and one thing and another. But anyway, he makes it somehow to Damascus. And there he starts a big campaign, and he talks about his experience and the big public relations thing, and he got the thing going. He got the church built, and the Judeo-Christian ethic came out of this, and bingo, and all the things that, that come with this. So we've got something.
Yeah.
Now, suppose the same thing would happen, and this fellow, so St. Paul, say, is driving down on Route 128. So then this fellow is driving, and suddenly this big ball of light descends in front of his windshield, and there's Jesus standing in front of him, and he gets very, very impressed, and his driving naturally gets kind of wobbly. And so, sure enough, there's a cop behind him, and he says, ooh, and gets him off to the side of the road. And he says, sir, may I have your license and registration and all that? And this fellow is so impressed, and he keeps babbling something about Jesus and all that. And the cop says, well, you must be driving under the influence, right? So he arrests him and takes him in the station. Then what happens is that he comes to the station, and then they tell him, well, he still is under the influence, you see. So they call an ambulance and send him off to the mental hospital. So now
So I think this reflects in modern day as well. Possible UFO sightings. Back thousands of years ago, they didn't comprehend the technology for aliens to have spaceships and shit, so they just saw them as angels and gods and demons and shit that they're coming down. But nowadays, since we've had the technological evolution, there's been a lot more UFO sightings. And, is this people that seeing, or was it thousands of years ago that there were people seeing the UFOs coming from different dimensions, and now we're re-seeing this again now in our time? Oh.
The reception desk, they interview him, a very short interview, and the guy puts down in the logbook that the fellow came in with an acute psychotic or schizophrenic episode with religious overtones. That's it. And this is what we did to the miracle. So we took the miracle and we ground it down really to gray powder. So no more miracles.
Okay.
Everybody's complaining that during the Bible times, on every page of the Bible you have a miracle or two, and now there's no miracles. This is what we're doing to the miracles. We're just flattening them out.
What is it that is evolving? Now, you talked about the nervous system evolving, right? But is
Yeah.
there something else that is evolving that is able to be sensitive to this higher level of reality?
We have this notion of a soul. You know? Most people won't talking about the soul. It's a kind of non-physical thing, highly theoretical. And
Yeah,
so
soul.
when you go to church, you take this soul out of the closet and polish it up a little bit, and then you go to church and you are one with your soul. Then you come back and put it back in the closet till next week. So that's about the idea of a normal person, the soul. But actually, that's not the case. I mean, we don't have souls, but it's just the other way around. A soul has us. So that is that thing that evolves, the permanent, eternal thing is the soul, and the body is a kind of disposable thing. That is, you know, you use a body like a car for 80,000 miles, 100,000 miles, and you junk it, and that's it, you get another one. So it's the driver is the soul who uses the body for a while, and then he runs it into the ground, and he gets another one sooner or later.
And so it's the soul which is experiencing evolution, and not our personality, not our physical existences.
That is, the soul is the repository of information that we gather during a lifetime. Well, I'll tell you, maybe we should draw another diagram. Physical bodies are here, another physical body, another physical body, and this is Joe, and this is Jim, and this is Sarah, etc. Now, clearly, on the this is the physical level, yeah? Now, on this physical level, we all separate. You sit there, and I sit here, and we're all separate. Now, let's draw another level. This level is slightly higher, and let's call this the level of the soul, yeah? Well, there will be some mingling here. Let's draw this person as extending to practically infinity this way. Now, look what happens. At the physical level, we're separate, and there's this much distance between us. Let's say that on the soul level, this person extends this much, and the other person gets slightly mixed in with him. That is, the souls are, in a way, in touch with each other. Okay, they overlap, these two lines. Now, let's go now to a higher level, and let's call this, say, the level of the higher self, which is kind of a boss of that soul. There, what we find is that this fellow's higher self extends this much, and the other fellow's extends this much. There is more overlap between them.
Right.
On the very highest level, which is the high spiritual level, we are basically overlapping completely.
When you've experienced higher states of consciousness, this makes so much sense. When I've been out with friends who have been under the influence of psychedelics as well, you do have this kind of connection with each other. You know, you kind of know what's going on. Same when I'm out with my dog. When I'm walking my dog, when I've been on psychedelics, it's like we've got this connection together. It's like you can't explain it. You don't need words to talk. You just kind of know where each other is, and it's a very weird thing. But it just makes so much sense the way he explains it.
Everybody is overlapping everybody else. In other words, everything and everyone is everywhere. In other words, we've become omnipresent. This is a state of highly spiritual perfected beings, or gods, you may call them. Okay?
Okay, and so that we exist on all of those simultaneously.
On all of those simultaneously,
So then,
but we're not aware of them.
In your view, then, if when we see each other as separate entities, that's only seen on one plane of reality.
Correct. And so
3D
whether
plane.
we like it or not, we're all evolving towards godhood. But you know, it takes eons, so don't hold your breath.
Is that the purpose of evolution?
Naturally. Because at that point, you start understanding how the system works. And one of the good things about this system is that the system wants to teach you about itself.
What does
It's
it
a
want
good
to teach you?
system.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What does it want to teach you?
Well, if you are omnipresent and you're all-knowing, that is the state which the system wants you to be in. Because the system is an intelligence or information gathering system.
The universe wants you to succeed, but you have to play the game of the universe in order to do so. It's kind of the lessons I've learned, not by anybody in particular, just by looking inside myself over the last 12 months. It's strange. There's an interesting thing about Itzhak Bentov as well. His works were used by the CIA in something which was called the Gateway Experience. And I've got some videos explaining what that is on my YouTube channel, just under the playlist, other people's videos. Basically, it was a CIA program back in the 70s, 80s that was looking into higher consciousness, expanded states of consciousness. And they based all their work on Itzhak Bentov's theories, hypotheses, whatever you want to call them. And they used a guy called Bob Monroe, who founded the Monroe Institute. And they used the Monroe Institute to use binaural beats. And basically people would listen to sounds through headphones, and there's a slightly different frequency from the left ear to the right ear, which then balances out to what they call a binaural beat, which is it affects the way that your brain waves operate. It changes your brain waves. When you're in the deep sleep, you're in a certain state of brain waves, things theta, and when you're wide awake, it's alpha. So it forces you into different states of consciousness. I've done a lot of listening to the tapes of the Gateway Experience myself. You can download them off the internet. They're everywhere they are. And it's very interesting, especially when you're on psychedelic drugs when you do it, because then it takes you places and it's strange.
And it's also freely distributing that information.
In your view,
Yeah.
we all started off somewhere a long time ago in which there was sort of undifferentiated matter, which slowly, millions and millions and millions of eons, evolved until a very complex organism that we now call a human being. And it has a nervous system which we at this particular point in time understand as being sensitive to certain levels of reality through our eyes, our ears, our nose, other sensory perception. And that's sort of what we call material, ordinary reality that enables us to drive cars and do our work every day. However, there is an evolutionary movement that will continue to push us beyond where we are today. And the thing which is going to be pushed is our soul, and that at some point we will have these experiences of elevated consciousness in which higher realities are not only seen but lived, and ultimately we come into perfection.
Whether we like it or not.
Yeah? Can we speed that up by doing anything?
Yeah. Well, you use the meditative techniques which push the nervous system a lot faster than the normal evolutionary rate.
And
Those
psychedelics.
techniques are available, but you don't need to do anything. It's
Binaural
going to
beats.
happen
It's
anyway.
going to happen. What a view. That's a very big, bright view.
So that was his interview. And like I say, he's a very interesting gentleman. And I like his works. He wrote a book called Stalking The Wild Pendulum, which you can find, I think it's on my playlist, on my literature playlists on YouTube. Very interesting book. I've started reading it. I haven't finished it yet. I will finish it one day. But I really think that he's onto something there. I don't know if you agree with that. Please let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Peace out, motherfuckers.